What movie or series lit your fuse and made you have to tell stories on screen?
I was probably 12, 1956, when I saw Lust for Life with my dad. And my brother and I were in a theater in Westport, Connecticut, where we lived at the time. That was the year that I really realized about acting and performances, because both Joel and I forgot that it was our dad. We just thought we saw this guy who was totally nuts, called Vincent van Gogh. And I remember when he cut his ear off, Joel, who's 2 years younger than me, he started screaming and he ran out. Dad's cut his ear. He got all kind of mixed up, and I was close behind because we were so immersed. And I thought, wow, if he could do that, if Dad could make us forget who he was, that left a big impression on me, without a doubt. The other way was 2001, but I had a little pharmaceutical help on watching that screening, and I think the combination of the special effects was certainly a mind blower to me as to what visually you could see and how it could encompass you. The first one that I ever remember just seeing it actually in college was a Russian movie called Alexander Nevsky. And again, the effects in it were just amazing. It was armies going over the ice, and then the ice breaking and falling into the water. And I remember that being really a stunning picture. And also another Russian movie called Ballad of a Soldier, which was just a beautiful love story. So those are four that kind of come to mind. It still didn't motivate me enough to want to become an actor. At least that the seeds were there, you know.
On your way up, what movie or series did you watch that was so good it made you question if you could ever rise to that level?
The Graduate was as close to, I remember, I thought like a perfect movie. I think the reality of Dustin's part in relation to his girlfriend's mother, you know, and it might have been because of a similar situation that may have been going on at the same time, but it just effortlessly sort of unfolded. You didn't feel like you were being manipulated by story or script. There was a credibility and a reality about it, and a wonderful sense of humor, which I've always been fascinated about. I just like that tenuous area between humor and drama. I've always been sort of fascinated with that gray area, and thinking about it now, Graduate is probably one of those pictures that I like, where some moments you were sort of like on edge, oh my goodness, in other areas you're laughing your brains out. And I've always thought that's sort of like what life is. It's not like one thing or the other. It's always kind of a mix.
Whether it was your own work or approval from someone who mattered to you, what first gave you the confidence that you belonged?
As a producer, the passion that I had for Cuckoo's Nest and the ability to have that took care of itself with its success and teaching me about trusting my first instincts. I found my first thought or my first instinct is usually right 80% of the time, and I came to count on that. So that came early in my career, and the decision to leave a successful show, Streets of San Francisco. I try to tell people now, can you imagine the lead actor, Carl Mulder, and the producer, Quinn Martin, me telling them, well, you know, I know the show's a hit, and I know I'm contracted for 5 years, but I'd like to leave after this fourth year now. And they said, sure, we understand. I mean, I just don't see that happening in the biz, you know, these days. So anyway, taking the gamble to leave a hit show, and everybody says you were nuts because we're just going in and that was hit to produce this independent movie, and then its success solidified me in terms of my instincts. As far as my confidence in front of a camera, it did not happen until '85, until the year of Fatal Attraction and Wall Street, the combination of commercial success of Fatal Attraction, getting the Oscar. That was probably the first time that I felt like I really kind of stepped out of the shadow of Dad. For Cuckoo's Nest, it was the director who has approval of the casting and all of that. Far be it from me as a first-time producer. The reality was that Dad was into his 60s by that time. I mean, we auditioned Bobby De Niro for that part. So it was Milosh's decision. We always teased him because at first he came back to Saul's Dance and I said he wanted to go with Burt Reynolds. We said, Burt Reynolds, wow, okay, geez, wow. Why Burt Reynolds? Yeah. Burt Reynolds, yeah, he has cheap charisma. That's perfect for McMurphy. Jack sort of was like the gentleman rascal, sort of, 5 Easy Pieces, Easy Rider, kind of the intellectual kind of guy. You never thought of him. But we had been talking to Hal Ashby as another possibility for director who wanted to do Cuckoo's Nest. And then Hal had mentioned Jack, and I questioned, but Hal was doing a picture called The Last Detail. Have I come to realize how rare you get a good part in your life? People always ask, well, what are you doing next? As if, one is just inundated with this wonderful scripts and materials. It doesn't happen. And R.P. McMurphy is one of the great characters. It was a wonderful, wonderful part. So I certainly understood how Dad felt. And I think I only was protected by the fact that it turned out as well as it did. And Dad would be the first one to congratulate Jack and the production. But he held it against me for a lot of years.
What was the biggest obstacle you overcame that allowed you to turn the projects that influenced you into your own language?
I used to work at the Eugene O'Neill Memorial Theater at the National Playwrights Conference. And I just worked as a gopher this summer, kind of behind the scenes in the theaters. But basically, it was a playwrights conference where the actors who were there were serving these new plays. And readily understood very early on, before I really began my career, how the material was the absolute epicenter, was the foundation of which anything was created. And unless you had a spectacular blueprint and a great design, your movie was going to be flawed. You could not make it up with however good the actors were or the parts were. And also for my training in theater in school, I was an old-fashioned 3 acts kind of guy. And then doing Streets of San Francisco, which was a prologue, 4 acts, and an epilogue, I was an old-fashioned structuralist. So I think that structure played a very, very key part in relating to the materials that I did, rather than any sort of subjective sense. As what separated me as an actor, and probably as a producer, is being so focused on the structure, the material of the piece.
How has the explosion in streaming changed the way you work?
As somebody who began in television, right, and who then, when I left that series and now was a producer with my first deals as a producer, I was still a television actor, and I had a lot of films that I was developing that I was not approved as the actor to be in the show. I'm thinking of things like Starman, which Jeff Bridges did, which I would have liked to have done it, but Jeff was he was approved in that picture, and I wasn't. And when I left television, I realized it was a very short group of I think it was Clint Eastwood and Steve McQueen, Travolta to a degree, that have been in television and then gone into movies. It's not often, it's rare. I've watched my entire life these sort of separate rails in which film has always thought themselves as the elite, and what you wanted to achieve, and television was television. People telling you very early on, the difference is in television, they can see you for free, but on movies, they got to pay to see you, and the separation. So I'm ecstatic about streaming, because streaming is synergistic in that it's brought together feature film and television in new ways. For feature film writers, streaming was the place where they could be a producer, where they could make more money and have a little more control and freedom than feature films. I think it's definitely here to stay. I'm deeply concerned about where movie theaters are in our future. Is it going to be like opera and ballet going to the movie theater? I don't know yet. We'll see. Other than turning digital in my career, going from celluloid to digital, which was the biggest change, both for acting and performing, because acting just allows you to do more takes without having to repeat. And streaming, I think, are the two biggest changes I can think of in the last 40, 50 years.